Hello, this is Pastor James Hargrave. Welcome back to Greatest Love Ministries. In this video, we're going to look at Daniel 8 and how Daniel 8 prophesies the founding of the United States in 1788. But that prophecy of Daniel, like most of the prophecies of Daniel, it helps to interpret them by also looking at Revelation, since both the book of Revelation and Daniel are talking about the same period of time, or as it says, the time of the end. To get a clue about what time period he's talking about here, the vision is talking about, let's look at verse 2, chapter 8, verse 2. In my vision, I saw myself in the citadel, or the palace of Susa, in the province of Elam. In the vision, I was beside the Ulai Canal. So he tells us where he's having this vision, in a palace in Susa. It doesn't say what time period he was in that palace. But if we look over here, and this is off the internet, Heritage Institute. It says Susa as Archemian, I can't pronounce that, Archemian capital. Susa became part of the Persian Empire under Cyrus II the Great in 538 or 539 before the Common Era. Darius I the Great built an extensive palace complex around 510 BC, before Common Era, 510, they're saying. And these are rough. This is derived by archaeology. Sometimes they're off a little bit. So, but basically they're saying 510. Now, that's our first piece of information here. Let's go down. This is still Daniel 8. He's talking about this little horn that's going to grow up and become a big horn. Before that, he's talking about the empires of, he tells us down here, the ram and the goat, which with the interpretation of the vision, he's saying the two-horned ram represent the kings of Media and Persia. The shaggy goat is king of Greece. So he's telling us these are powerful kings, big kingdoms, empires. And out of that horn, the four horns that were broken off, the four kingdoms shall emerge out of Greece. Then he jumps to the future in the latter part of their reign. And that's when he's jumping to the end times. The times. But this is a little horn. It's a small empire that grows to be a large, mighty empire. And he said to me, it will take 2,300 evenings and mornings, or 2,300 days, or 2,300 years, then the sanctuary will be reconsecrated. Now, what is he talking about here at 2,300? Let's look at it. More information from Revelation. Revelation chapter 12. Talking about the church, if you will, or Israel, the church, the believer. She gave birth to a son, a male child, who will rule all the nations with an iron scepter. That's a reference to Jesus, of course. And here it gives us the Bible quote, I think. Well, we'll get to that. Well, let's jump to it. I already said that. Psalm 2:9. Okay, Psalm 2:9. And her child was snatched. Come on. What the heck happened there? Oh, yeah. All right. Verse 5. And her child was snatched up to God and his throne. The woman fled into the wilderness to a place prepared for her by God, where she might be taken care of for 1260 days. And remember, a couple things I want to mention here. I mentioned in Revelation, there's this doubling principle that comes out of Revelation chapter 18. Double the punishment on Babylon. The 1,000-year reign of Christ is a 2,000-year New Testament reign of the New Covenant. So, and her child was snatched up to God and to his throne. That's the ascension of Jesus to God the Father. The woman fled into the wilderness. The wilderness. You hear, in history, talking about the New World. In the New World, from the Europeans, discovering the New World, it was a wilderness to them. And she might be taken care of for 1,260 days. Now, you double this 1,260 days, like many of these time periods in Revelation, you get 2,520 days or 2,520 years. Well, the United States hasn't been around that long. But now we're going to see some curious, again, if you want to call them correlations or ratios. Let's scroll down here a little further. The woman, verse 14. The woman was given the two wings of a great eagle. Of course, eagle is a national bird or national animal symbol of the United States, so that she might fly to the place prepared for her in the wilderness, in the New World, where she would be taken care of for a time, times, and half a time. Now, normally, a time, times, and half a time is 1 year, times is 2 years, and half a time is half a year. This can also, though, be a ratio. So if you make, just doing a little algebra here, if you make half a time, well, let me just look at this real quick. I'm going to pop up my little calculator here. I'm going to just run this through my brain real quick. Yeah, well, that's not what I wanted. But anyway, it talks about, I'm getting a time, times, and half a time. A ratio of x, 2x, 4x, if you will. Now, if this time that she's from the palace of Susa is taken care of in the wilderness, and I realized that Jesus hadn't come until from Susa, that's 510 more years before he comes. But if that's the starting point of this countdown, 2,300 years from 510 or 512 BC is 1788. Or the ratification of the Constitution, the wings of the great eagle. So then, time, times, and time and a half. So from 1788, what would time, times, and times have to be? And what is this reconsecration? So you're talking about he's tramped the Antichrist system to come, this bigger horn, even bigger, will trample the holy people to the ground. I'm looking for Daniel in the wrong book. Concerning the daily sacrifice, the rebellion that causes desolation. Daily, so this has something to do with sacrifice. Another word for sacrifice is money. Even if you're talking about the Old Testament sacrifices of having to sacrifice a sheep or a goat or a lamb, it takes money. You had to buy it. It was property. It had value in the marketplace. So this has to do with financial transactions and money. So doing the little calculation of 7x or time times and time and a half, I looked at this $1,260-year period that it talks about in Revelation 12 and doubled it. Times it by 2, 2,520 minus 2,300. That's 220. And just go along with me here. Sometimes you have to add on. Things are close but not exact. I'm going to add on half a year, 220. And the reason for that is sometimes in the Bible prophecies it's pointing to the beginning of the new year on the ecclesiastical calendar, which is in the spring. Ecclesiastical New Year, the month of Nisan. Sometimes it's pointing to the civil New Year, which month of Tishri, which is in the fall. They're 6 months apart, roughly. So 220.5, divide that by 7x. Get 31 and a half years for x. So that's a half a time. So a time 2x is 63 years. And doubling that again to have times 126 years. Now let's look at some interesting things. Since this is about money, this is a little bit about money, the trampling overfoot, trampling the people underfoot, the daily sacrifice being taken away, the rebellion. So let's just start with 1788. And just doing that times and time and a half by algebra. Let's add here 220, well, no, not just 1788. Let's do 1788 and a half, because that's exactly what the Constitution was ratified June 21st in 1788. Let's add 220.5 years. Get to 2009, or when Barack Obama, or the Antichrist, or the beast, or the little horn that became a big horn. It's pointing to him. This is also very close to, depending on how you figure it, to the 62 years of Daniel 9 in which the Messiah or the Anointed One would come. And I do think that's a 77-year prophecy pointing to the return of Jesus Christ. But it's also talking about the Antichrist, the little horn. And that too is saying around 2009, 2010. So again, let's look at 1788.5. We're going to go out 126 years. That's times 1914.5. What happened 1914.5 that's significant? That had to do with money. November 1914. The 12 locations of the decentralized component of the Federal Reserve System opened for business on November 16, 1914, just 7 months after the locations were selected. the Federal Reserve came into being. Okay, from this date, 1914 and a half, we're going to go a time, 63 years, 1977 and a half. What happened around that time, significant, having to do with money? Let's read it right here. The Jamaican Accords happened, an agreement with the International Monetary Fund was to abolish the gold standard that the Bretton Woods system had previously established. So they abolished gold, and in 1978 they set up SDRs, strategic drawing rights, which is all replacements for gold and silver, and getting away from God's money into New World Order money, satanic money, control money, the money that has the potential to control every aspect of your life, the money system that will bring the world to its knees. And this is all a setup. They've been working on this, at least this aspect of it, since 1914. Here it talks about the Jamaican Accords, the agreement, January 1976. I believe it was ratified in 77, which is the year we're looking for. Okay. Now let's go back to 1977, and we're going to add the half a time, 31 and a half. 2009, what was significant with money about 2009. Quantitative easing was undertaken by some major central banks worldwide following the global financial crisis of 2007-2008. So it was after that, be 2009. I'm just trying to give you a brief, short reference. Quantitative easing came in, and what we have, quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4. And all this BS about tightening is just that. It's never going to happen. So that you can see over time, and it's in biblical prophecy, although not directly, this taking away of the daily sacrifice is taking away our money. It's like pouring acid on our gold and silver. It's taken away. It's taking real money, real assets, and taking away. It's another way of saying it. The central banking system, what we have in the United States, is a wealth transfer system through inflation. And, you know, the central banks are counterfeiters. And that's the system we have here. And it's transferring this wealth and all this power and control in the hands of a very, very few. And that's how they're taking over the world. Through the central banks, this monetary making system that's corrupt, and it's very designed. It's dishonest weights and measures. That's what it's based in. Dishonest weights and measures. The United States people are fools for going along with it. They deserve what they're going to get. If you want a little bit more information about the monetary system of the United States, read this book, Pieces of Eight, The Monetary Powers and Disabilities of the United States Constitution, by Edwin Vieira Jr. Excellent book. It's hard to get hold of, but you can get it from the library. That's where I got it from at one point, interlibrary loan. It's an excellent, excellent book. Talk about constitutional money and how we lost that. How what we have today is not constitutional money. It was prohibited by the Constitution. He goes into all that detail and why it's important. The whole history and everything. So what also happened? So this brings us up to 2009, Barack Obama. Barack Obama's the Antichrist. So where can we expect the next crisis what the next crisis will be. Another financial crisis. Another financial crisis, but this time it's going to be complete, because they're going to instill panic again in the population, this time through a nuclear bomb or more than one going off. Be financial collapse, it'll be currency collapse, and they will use that crisis to implement RFID chipping of the population and or facial recognition system that you have to have in order to buy or sell. And this is what they were going for. This is what the Federal Reserve has been going for since 1914. And they definitely have dreamed about before then. So this really 2300, you just have to tack on another 220 years on that to get up to 2520 years to when the little horn arrives. And that's also what Daniel 9 says. See, many of these prophecies, it's like the Bible says, you need 2 or 3 witnesses to support something, an accusation. The Bible talks about an event or a date by 2 or 3 different prophecies in different parts of the Bible. And they support each other. That's why you can be pretty sure you're on track when you're interpreting it. Thank you very much.